Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Crowd Chair Podcast. And boy, do we have a do we have a good week for you. It is this week is loaded, and I mean loaded with just absolutely fantastic games. There's a lot of great games to see this week. Definitely a week you don't want to miss. But with our picks videos, you guys always know how these go. How we always start with our shockers of the week. Now, once again, of course, no Srbensky, no Sam. They're both busy today, so not able to get them on this on for this video. But you do still have me. Of course, I don't know. Maybe you guys are getting tired of me at this point. But we'll start with Srbensky shocker since I have just no clue what I'm going to do. Srbensky's shocker is going to be one of many big games this week, and that is Ole Miss going on the road to take on Bama. He has the Runnin' Rebels with a big upset. He has the Runnin' Rebels taking down the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa, which would be Bama's second loss at home this season, as they already lost at home to the Texas Longhorns. And he has them losing again in the upset with the Ole Miss Rebels getting the dub, getting the win, and taking down Alabama. Um, this was actually what the one I was going to take, but then when he sent in his picks, he actually picked this one. So now I gotta figure out what game I actually want to do, and I considered this one, and I'm only going to take this one just because the line is so enormous. The only other one I considered was BYU and Kansas, but Colorado is a 21-point underdog. Now, do I think this is going to take place? Do I think that upset is actually going to happen? No. There's no Travis Hunter. In all reality, think the Buffaloes are going to get absolutely slaughtered. Spoiler alert. Um, in all reality, I think Colorado is going to get slaughtered in Eugene, especially with no Travis Hunter. Still could be a close game, but in all likelihood, Colorado's not going to end up winning this game, especially with Hunter now having a lacerated liver. Um, Still one of the dirtiest hits in college football I've ever seen. I know that the coaches said, "Oh well, his intention wasn't to actually hurt him." Give me a that is such a lie. It was so obvious that's exactly what that guy's intention was. He showed zero remorse. All he did was kind of stare at him and walk away. He showed zero remorse. It was blatantly obvious that was his intention, and it was just brutal the fact that they didn't eject him or at least suspend him for a couple games. Just utterly ridiculous in my opinion. Because I mean, it was so obvious. He didn't even try to hide it. He literally just he basically took out Travis Hunter and showed zero remorse for it, and then got to stay in for the rest of the game and hasn't even been suspended yet. I still don't get how that was not flagged. Oh, no, it was flagged, I think. I honestly don't remember, but the fact that he wasn't ejected or suspended or anything to me is just ludicrous. Anyways, moving on to the picks, as I don't have Sam's picks at the moment. If I do get them during this video, I will fill those in. But for right now, it'll be just me and Srbensky. And starting off, we start with the first game this week, which is one of 8 undefeated matchups this week. This is the most unenticing of them all, but still, as I said, 8 undefeated matchups. So there's a lot this week. There's a lot of good stuff. But we got Rutgers at 3-0 on the road, taking on the Wolverines. I think you can probably assume who all of us are going to be taking. Rutgers is actually isn't necessarily surprisingly 3-0, but they have faced a couple. They've faced some Power Five opponents at least, but I mean, this is Michigan, and this is also Rutgers. Yeah, sure. Rutgers is 3-0. I'm just putting in Michigan for Sam. I rather doubt he's taking Rutgers. Um, but Wolverines are a good team, obviously, and Rutgers might be respectable, but that doesn't mean they're better than Michigan. I obviously think the Wolverines should win pretty handily, and I'm sure everybody else does too. Next, we have Arkansas on the road against LSU. I will just reserve any more picks for Sam for later. This is going to be a really close game. This one's in Baton Rouge. Last year, this game was in Arkansas, and it was snowing. Don't know how in the world we can get snow in Arkansas, but that was what was happening last year. I'm sure those people in Arkansas are looking at it like, what is this stuff? But it's not going to be snowing this time. It's going to be nice and warm and hot and, well, what it's supposed to be in the South. And this one, give me LSU. Arkansas is coming off a home loss to BYU. Not that enticing. BYU is maybe a decent team, but the fact that they lost at home is not really that impressive. LSU, I think, is a really good team. This spells nightmares for Arkansas. Give me the LSU Tigers in the win. And that is going to be the same case for Serbinsky, as he has LSU getting the win as well over the Arkansas Razorbacks. Next, we have Texas Tech going on the road to take on the West Virginia Mountaineers. This is anybody's game. Texas Tech has not looked good to start off this season, with a very unimpressive loss in their first week against Wyoming. Playing close with Texas Tech, and then, or I'm sorry, not Texas Tech, playing it close with Oregon, and then having whatever win they had last week, probably against some no-name team that I know absolutely nothing about. I actually have absolutely no idea who they played last week. And apparently it was Tarleton State. Yeah, well, you're supposed to win that game. And then West Virginia, obviously their only loss of the year is on the road against Penn State. And then they ended up beating Pitt last week in the backyard brawl, which was a decent game. With West Virginia being at home, I didn't realize that Texas Tech was actually a 6-point favorite, but I'm also not gonna. I don't really feel like switching it, so I'll stick with the shocker that I have. Give me West Virginia in this one. I think the Mountaineers. Texas Tech has not looked impressive. They've looked pretty bad so far, and losing to Wyoming is a really bad look. West Virginia has looked competitive in all their games, even against Penn State when they looked severely outmatched. They still didn't get blown off the field, didn't necessarily get blown off the field, and showed some fight. So give me West Virginia in this one. Serbinsky has Texas Tech, but I got Mountaineers. It'll be close. It's probably going to be anybody's game, but I got Mountaineers, especially with home field advantage. I got West Virginia. And then next we have the San Diego State Aztecs at home taking on Boise State. Big game here. San Diego State has not looked all that enticing. Then again, neither has Boise State. So this is just a battle of two uninspiring teams. And San Diego State has played two of the better teams in the Pac-12, playing UCLA at home and then Oregon State on the road. They looked okay in those two games. Boise State, they don't look very special. So give me San Diego State at home at Snapdragon Stadium. Serbinsky also has San Diego State in the win at home, taking down Boise State and sending the Broncos to 1-3. We would assume. Next, we have Mississippi State on the road taking on South Carolina. This is a tough one again, because Mississippi State, this is a team. I mean, I don't really know what their defense is like, but their offense is overall. Mississippi State is a very average team. There's nothing really, v- overly special about them, but this is a team, overtime win at home against Arizona. They still have Will Rogers as their starting quarterback. So really, this is a tough one for me because South Carolina, if you've seen that offensive line, it is brutal, and the Gamecocks just don't look very good. Now this is a home game, so it's hard for me to really say uh, how this is going to go. But with South Carolina's offensive line being as poor as it is, I'm going Mississippi State. I just South Carolina's offensive line scares me because every single time, I mean Georgia they actually looked pretty impressive for a half, but then when it came to the second half, the Bulldogs did what they actually should have done in the first half. But South Carolina, Spencer Rattler's a really good QB, but if he doesn't get any time in the backfield, he's not going to be able to throw it to anybody. And it's very hard to make plays if you're constantly running for your life. And that's what Spencer Rattler has been doing pretty much the first 3 weeks of the year, and will continue to do that probably against Mississippi State. This is anybody's game, but I'm betting on the Bulldogs. Will Rogers is a good quarterback; he can make plays. Um, I mean, so can Rattler, but at least Mississippi State can protect their QB mostly, unlike the Gamecocks clearly, as they got blown over by North Carolina's offensive or defensive line. So give me Mississippi State. Serbensky did take South Carolina, which is a fair pick. I don't blame him for that. I'm going a little bit riskier and taking Mississippi State here. And then next we have Maryland on the road against Michigan State. The Spartans finally ended up firing Mel Tucker. Their program is in shambles. They're bad. I mean, their entire program is just in a absolute downward spiral at the moment, and it's going out of control. I don't have much faith in this Sparty team. Give me Maryland, and that is where Serbensky is going as well. It's messy in East Lansing, and it's not getting any prettier. And then next we have UCF going on the road to take on Kansas State. Another good game here. I mean, I said this at the beginning of this video. There's a lot of really good games this week, and when I said that, I meant that. There is a lot of very good games this week. Kansas State coming off their first loss of the season, being on the road against Missouri, and what after that 61-yard field goal went up and through for the Tigers, being the longest in SEC history. A big win for Missouri, knocking Kansas State out of the top 25 as they had dropped from 15. Kansas State's team is solid, and this is a home game. UCF is okay. They are 3-0 to start off the season, but I'd love to take UCF in like an upset, but I don't think that's happening. I think Kansas State, after a down week, gets back on track. They are the defending Big 12 champions. I think Kansas State finds their rhythm again, and they get a big win back at home against UCF. That's the same case for Serbensky. He has Kansas State getting the win at home against UCF. A big win for the Wildcats to get them back on track. Then we have Auburn going on the road to take on Texas A&M. This is another game that I think is a flip a coin. Auburn, I'm not really sure if Auburn's really all that special. But then you look at Texas A&M, and they took they took a beating in Miami. I mean, they lost by 15. They did score 33, but still 48 points to Miami's offense. If you saw that Miami offense a year ago, you would know that Miami offense is pretty bad. At least it was last year. And Tyler Van Dyke just diced up the A&M defense for 5 touchdowns. 21 of 30 for 374 yards. That's a problem. And Auburn's quarterback maybe isn't necessarily Tyler Van Dyke, but Auburn's quarterback still, he's a solid player too. As he played at Michigan State, as most of you might know, Peyton Thorne. He did really well at Michigan State. Against Cal, Auburn didn't look all that special, but they still won in Cal. I mean, it is a East Coast game, but Texas A&M, they're a team that just I don't know, they're all over the place. Some games that they do look really good, and they look like a top team. They look like a top unit, and then other weeks they just look bad. They look awful. They look like they're nobodies. They look like they can't do anything right. And so with Auburn, new head coach Hugh Freeze, the Aggies are home, and it's a 12 o'clock noon game. This one is this is a big one. I'm gonna actually go with Texas A&M. Connor Weidman is the starting QB. I don't know if I'm really sold on Auburn yet. I'm not really sold on A&M either, but I'll give the Aggies the win at home. I'll give it to the home team. That tends to be my go-to. If it's a toss-up, I tend to go mostly with the home team unless I know of a big injury. Then I would go with the road team. And then Texas A&M is also the pick for Srbensky. Next, we have Wisconsin going on the road to take on Purdue. I'm not even gonna take too much time on this one. I don't have any faith in Purdue after seeing them barely beat Virginia Tech, lose at home to Fresno State in the first week of the year. Fresno State might be a decent team, but still 39 points, and then looking absolutely terrible against Syracuse. Wisconsin hasn't looked fantastic either, but they've looked way better than Purdue has. Give me the Badgers. Srbensky has Purdue. He has the Boilermakers in West Lafayette. I could see it, but I'm going. I'm sticking safe, and I got Purdue. I'm sorry, Wisconsin. Uh, Next, we have Oklahoma going on the road to take on Cincinnati. Oklahoma's looked really good to start this season. I don't know how good they really are, but I know Cincinnati is not very good as they lost in their last week to Miami, Ohio. I'm not sold on Cincinnati whatsoever. Give me Oklahoma to win this one. I know it's on the road, but this is Oklahoma, and Cincinnati is not good. At least, nah. If you're losing to Miami, Ohio, to me, you can't be very good. So give me Oklahoma. And that's also the pick for Srbensky. He has the Sooners as well in Cincinnati. Then next we have a battle of two more undefeated teams in Memphis and Missouri. Missouri is just coming off that huge win at home against Kansas State. Memphis is kind of just barely holding on to that undefeated record. Just kind of hoping to chug along and stay alive. Missouri, this is an interesting game as well. Missouri's team is okay. I don't know if there's really much more. They do have a very good wide receiver, and that's really about all. There's not really much else that Missouri has other than was it Luther Burden Jr. I think is what is how you say his name. I believe that's what it is. But Missouri's is a decent team. They're not too shabby. They're overall solid. And their quarterback Brady Cook is a decent player. But Luther Burden is the heart and soul of this team. He was a true freshman last year. He's a top recruit. He's like a top 10 recruit actually, I think. Missouri's got a good team. They got a solid overall squad. Memphis, their first 3 weeks, have been they've been okay. Missouri's coming off that, like I said, Missouri is coming off that huge win against is coming off that huge win against Kansas State. I don't know. I'm slow tonight, guys. I'm like blinking out constantly. But Missouri, I got them with the win. At home, they might come out. It might be a little sluggish to start, but it's not like Memphis, in my opinion, is some fantastic team. So in the battle of actually, I just realized this, but in the battle of the Tigers, the Missouri Tigers is the one that comes up on top. And also, that will be the pick for Stravinsky. He has Missouri getting the win over Memphis and taking down the Memphis Tigers and remaining undefeated. And as another defeated, will take another undefeated will take a fall this year. And as you can see, we have another battle of undefeated teams. And BYU going on the road to take on Kansas in what is a brand new Big 12 conference matchup. Oklahoma Cincinnati is too, although that's going to be for literally 1 year. But this is actually going to be a future consistent Big 12 matchup here. The BYU Cougars and the Kansas Jayhawks. Both teams a surprising 3-0 to start off this year. I don't really know what to think of either one of these teams because both of them have looked good at different points. With Kansas dismantling Illinois and BYU overcoming two different double-digit deficits to beat Arkansas on the road. So both of these teams have had their moments. They've also had their not-so-great moments, with Kansas nearly losing to Nevada, who lost to Idaho at home 33-6. And then BYU with a uninspiring 14-0 win against Sam Houston State. So these two teams, anything's possible with them. Jalen Daniels is back for Kansas, so he is officially healthy. BYU's not really a team that goes away from home and wins very much, but coming off that Arkansas win, that's actually pretty impressive for them. Kansas is all over the place. Both of these teams are all over the place. I'll go with BYU. They just came off of a road win at Arkansas. They did it once, they can do it again. Kansas, they're only really Illinois even started coming back late in that game. I'll go with BYU to stay undefeated. Stravinsky has Kansas. I could see either one of those two winning it, but BYU might have a little bit more talent than Kansas. They do have Keaton Slovis, so anybody's game. I got BYU in the win. And then we go to an infamous rivalry, the Iron Skillet Battle of SMU going on the road, taking on TCU. These two teams obviously very close to each other. You know, in-state rivalry, not really all that big to everybody else, but to them, it probably does mean something. SMU and TCU, both of these teams are okay. SMU soon will be joining the ACC. TCU, of course, is actually sticking in the Big 12. Both of these teams are okay. SMU made it a little close against Oklahoma on the road. They lost that one 28-11. Of course, TCU took a tumble at home against Colorado in the first week of the year. Since then, has looked pretty solid. It can be close. It's anybody's really game. I got TCU. I could see either one of these teams really winning it, but TCU is going to be my pick. They're the home team. SMU is not Colorado, so I'll go with TCU. Close game, but I got Horned Frogs, and that is also the pick for Serbensky. He's got TCU getting the win over SMU. And then we have probably one of the biggest games in the ACC conference for the entire season here, and that is Florida State going on the road to take on Clemson. Florida State is coming off a uninspiring performance on the road against Boston College, which could be contributed to them possibly looking ahead to this game, but to only win against Boston College by 2 is pretty embarrassing. I mean, they almost essentially threw away that game, which is pretty bad. Clemson, of course, looked absolutely awful in their first game against Duke, and their next two games just, have beaten the teams that they're supposed to. Uh, I mean, they haven't really been tested since that Duke game. So Clemson has not looked good so far to really start. Florida State, at this moment, Florida State, I think, is clearly the better team. Clemson is the home team, though. And you know that these Tiger fans for Clemson are going to be loud. And really, honestly, if you think about it, this is the season for Clemson because you already took a massive loss on the road against Duke, of which nobody thought you were going to lose. You looked absolutely awful in that game. You got your butt handed over to you, and you already have one loss on the schedule. And really, in the ACC, one loss could even knock you out. I mean, of course, they would be able to get Florida State and North Carolina because they still have to play both of them with playing Florida State now. But Clemson has to win out. If they don't win out, there's no way they're making it. And even if they win out, that Duke loss, unless Duke keeps winning, that could really look bad. Anyways, Clemson's team just doesn't look very good. Anyway, I got Florida State. This Seminole team has got all the pieces. They're an experienced team, and they've had time to adjust already. That LSU game alone showed me how good this Florida State team really is and how capable they are. Because that LSU team is very good. They have several very good players, and LSU is very talented. In the first week of the year, Florida State, it was a very close game in the first half, and then the second half, it was like the Seminoles flipped the switch and they just blew LSU out of the water, and it was very impressive. I love this Seminoles team. They're incredibly dangerous and they're not to be messed with. Give me Florida State in a big win on the road, and what was considered to be one of the bigger games to start off the season before Clemson lost to Duke. Still is a very good game and still is a very big game, but give me Florida State. And that's also the pick for Serbenski. He has Florida State getting a win at home against the Clemson Tigers. Next we have Colorado going on the road to take on Oregon. As I said earlier when I was making this pick for my shocker, the the Colorado Buffaloes will not have Travis Hunter. In fact, they won't have Travis Hunter for a while still. So no Travis Hunter for Colorado. Obviously, probably their best player on their team. Um, and that's a huge loss because he does so much for Colorado. I mean, the guy is on the field nearly the entire game, both on offense and defense. He's clearly a fantastic player, and to not have him is just really, really sad. And like I said, it's a huge loss for Colorado. Now, is this team still a good team? Yeah, sure, they still have good players, but Travis Hunter is a big part of what they do. And to not have him is going to be very difficult. And to try and adjust in your first game, being on the road in Eugene against Oregon, I did pick this as my shocker because it's a 21-point line, and there is a small chance that Colorado might end up winning this game. But in all reality, this is going to be a win for Oregon. Oregon's the home team. Now, if this was in Colorado, I would consider taking the Buffaloes. I don't know what it is about the Oregon Ducks, but for whatever reason, this team just sucks on the road. The Oregon lane. Think about it. Texas Tech lost on the road to Wyoming. Wyoming's not a good team, but they lost to Wyoming, and Texas Tech's supposed to be really good. Then Texas Tech's at home against Oregon, and Oregon nearly loses to that same Texas Tech team that almost lost to Wyoming. This Oregon team, though, when they're at home, they're pretty tough to beat, and they're very good at home. And Colorado is going to figure that out the hard way. I got Oregon. This is going to be a fun game, I'm sure, but the Oregon Ducks are just too good, and Colorado is missing their best player. So I got Oregon. That's also the pick for Serbenski. He's got the Oregon Ducks with the win. And then now for the next one, we have UCLA, number 22, going on the road to take on the Utah Utes, of which I believe now have Cam Rising back. But this should be but even regardless of whether Rising is back or not, this should be a really good game. Oh, no, they don't have Cam Rising back yet. Okay. I thought they had him back. I guess not. But Cam Rising obviously is a really good player for Utah. Still missing him still is pretty rough and definitely is something. Um, looks like they're looking up stuff for Cam Rising is saying that they're going to decide Thursday whether he'll play. So it's still up in the air. But Utah, possibly still could be missing Cam Rising. Just like Oregon, Utah doesn't lose at home. The Utes are very good at home. Like Oregon, like I said, with Oregon, Utah, they're the same thing. They're both very tough to beat at home. UCLA's team is solid, and UCLA does have a very good team. Utah's at home. And Utah might be missing Cam Rising still, possibly for this game, but this is Utah. And Utah just doesn't lose at home. I don't know how, I don't know why, but Utah just never seems to lose at home. I mean, look at the one year that, Utah was just an ordinary looking team. They were just, they were ranked, like 23. They were a good team, but, nothing necessarily that you'd be like, oh my gosh, that's a fantastic team, and they beat the brakes off of a third-ranked Oregon team. I mean, this Utah team just they have their way at home, and it's very impressive. Give me the Utes in the win. Also the pick for Serbenski. We both have Utah. Next, we have, as you can tell, all these are ranked versus ranked matchups. Yeah, it's a loaded week. Next, we have the Iowa Hawkeyes at number 24 going on the road to take on Penn State in a 7:30 match. This is a night game. This is going to be the whiteout game for Penn State, the whiteout game. Obviously, their annual whiteout. This one they have for the Iowa Hawkeyes coming into town. Don't know why they don't know why they didn't do that for Michigan, but up to them, I suppose. This Iowa team, though, they're not a bad team. The thing about Iowa is going to be the offense. It always has been. It's been the thing for Iowa for like the past 4 or 5 years. Is will their offense ever show up? And it's not like this year Iowa doesn't have good enough players on offense, because they do. They have Cade McNamara. They have a decent running back. They have Eric All. They have Luke Lachey, both at tight ends. I mean, Iowa poops out tight ends every year, so I'm sure both those guys will turn into NFL superstars one day. And they also have a couple decent receivers that they throw to. So it's not like Iowa doesn't have a good offense. They have good players on the offensive end. And on defense, they're looking like the defense that they always have. They always have a good defense. That's an Iowa thing. Their defenses are always good. So the question really is going to be against Penn State, who we know that Penn State is is a playoff contender. The real question for this Iowa team is, can their offense score? I mean, Cade McNamara Cade McNamara knows Penn State. He's played, I'm pretty sure, at Happy Valley. Yeah, he's played at Happy Valley. He's played in Penn State. He's played at Happy Valley. He knows what it's like there. He's done it before. So, he can do it again. This is going to be, I think, way better than people think. I think many people are writing off Iowa to get absolutely blown out in this game. But I think it's going to come right down the wire. I think this Iowa team is finally going to step up, is finally going to show how good it really is. Then again, this is a really good Penn State team. So while I think Iowa's going to make it close and is going to make it interesting and show they're not chump change, this is still going to be a win for Penn State. They showed last week that they're not really phased by a road environment as they went down as in a potential trap game, beating the Illini in Illinois in a solid win. I think they get the win again home against the Iowa Hawkeyes. Also going to be the pick for Serbenski. He has Penn State in the win. Really good Penn State team. Going to be very fun to continue to see them play. Next, we have Oregon State on the road against Washington State. Once again, ranked versus ranked, 14 and 21. Washington State, I'm not really sure if this team is really the 21st best team in the country and is a, true 3-0 team. They beat Wisconsin. They nearly blew that entire lead, but that Wisconsin team looked really uninspiring. Oregon State looks really darn good. I gotta say, I really am loving this Oregon State Beaver team. DJ Clemson should have kept DJ Uyagale. That guy looks like everything that Clemson wanted him to be at Clemson, now being in Corvallis. This is going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be higher scoring with Washington having Cameron Ward as well. But give me Oregon State. I think the Beavers are ready for a big road test, and I think they in the battle of the two lone surviving Pac-12 teams, as they're the only ones remaining now, as everybody else is gone. I'm sure there'll be a bonding moment between they'll because this is like a 7 o'clock Fox game. I'm sure they're going to have some sort of storyline or some sort of like bonding moment technically between the two, over the fact that they're the lone two teams remaining in the Pac-12. But give me Oregon State. It's going to be a fun game for sure and definitely one to see. But I got the Beavers in a big win. Not the case for Serbenski. He actually has Washington State getting another big win at home. Jake Dickert, the Wisconsin native, with another big win. Definitely could see it. I got Oregon State. And then next we have Ole Miss going on the road to take on the Bama Crimson Tide. This is Serbenski's pick, or Serbenski's shocker. Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith. Like I said, I was going to pick Ole Miss as my shocker. I don't have faith in Bama, and I don't see that very often because Bama tends to be pretty darn good. Now, Ole Miss is also a team that is kind of sketchy because their defenses tend to be scary, and once again, their defense is just kind of meh. But the thing with this Bama team that's so much different than in previous years, their QB room is a mess. And nobody really knows who's going to play for them. I mean, they've had Jalen Milroe in a couple of weeks, and he didn't do much. So then they tried to bring in Tyler Buckner against USF, and he was brutal. So then they tried to bring in Ty Simpson, the true freshman, and he wasn't really all that special. Now they're gonna try Jalen Milroe again. It's a revolving door at the QB spot for Bama. And while Milroe has at least looked somewhat okay this year, and this really is the season kind of for Bama, because I mean 2 losses already with LSU still on the docket, as well as A&M, as well as Tennessee. All those different teams that you still have yet to play. I, I don't know if Ole Miss can get. I think Ole Miss gets it. In Tuscaloosa is going to be very tough, but this is an Ole Miss team that has shown that it can score, and they will score against Bama. I guarantee you they will score against Bama. The real question is, can Bama respond? And I don't think they will. Don't get me wrong. This is a very good. This is a solid. This is still a good Bama team. This Bama team is still not bad, but I don't think their offense is going to be able to keep up with Ole Miss. So give me Ole Miss in an upset. And of course, Serbenski, he took Ole Miss as his shocker. He sticks with Ole Miss as his actual pick as well. And then game of the week is a huge one in South Bend. We have Ohio State going on the road, taking on Notre Dame. Massive game here. Big time playoff implications. The Buckeyes have looked pretty uninspiring to start off this season. They are 3-0, but against Indiana didn't look really all that special. And then their next game wasn't really that inspiring. And then they beat the crap out of Western Kentucky. And Notre Dame has looked dynamite to start off this season. They have looked utterly fantastic. Kyle McCord is the new starting QB for Ohio State. For Notre Dame, their guy is Sam Hartman. This one's in South Bend, and this is going to be an absolute dogfight. This is a 7:30 game, along with the Penn State Iowa game. Get ready for some fireworks between these two, because there's going to be a lot of them, and this is going to be really fun. Now, as a Michigan fan, I absolutely hate Ohio State. So I'd love to see them lose, but I'm not really a fan of Notre Dame either. So seeing them win even more is not really all that enticing either. But if I had to choose, obviously I'm taking Notre Dame because I can't stand the Buckeyes. Not that I like Notre Dame, but it's like, yeah, they're the lesser of the two evils. So, but who I actually think is going to win is actually Notre Dame. Listen to me. Ohio State has just not looked all that impressive. Now, do I think they're a bad team? No, I don't. Ohio State is clearly a very good team. But this is in South Bend. First of all, this is in South Bend. Kyle McCord is not, a C.J. Stroud or a Justin Fields. He's neither one of those guys. He's more of a game. I mean, so far what we've seen, he's more of a game manager. He's no superstar. Is he a good quarterback? Yeah, sure, he is. But he's not really the guy that the Buckeyes are used to having. And the defense for Ohio State has looked solid, anyways. But the defense for Ohio State has looked pretty good. But Sam Hartman has been picking apart defenses this year so far. Anyway, I like Notre Dame in this one. Sam Hartman, and just coming from Wake Forest, has looked dynamite. And I mean, he's looked like what he had been at Wake Forest when they were going absolutely bananas. That's exactly what he's been doing with Notre Dame. And if he can continue to do that, Notre Dame is going to be in the playoff race. And this is a huge way to get them jump started. I got them beating the Buckeyes. That is not the same case for Serbinsky. He actually has Ohio State getting the win on the road. Definitely could see it. But with how Notre Dame has looked to start off the year and Ohio State, I'm going with the Fighting Irish in a big win at home, getting the win and taking down the Buckeyes. Yes, I am being a little bit pro Wolverine here, but I sincerely really do believe that Notre Dame is going to beat them. At home, with how good they've been, Ohio State has looked a bit better lately, but this is in South Bend. I'm going with the home team. I'm going with Notre Dame to get a big win. And that's it for this video. So I hope you guys did enjoy it. We'll have, of course, NFL football coming up next. And yeah, that's it for me. So until next time, adios, everyone.